Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a season review of Obi Wan Kenobi. Now there will likely be spoilers not only for this show but also for other series within Star Wars as well as the movies as well, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now Obi Wan is the third live action series of Star Wars within the Disney Plus platform after the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and you can check out my coverage of both of those shows within the channel, and I'll leave some links within the description. Now as you all know, Obi Wan centers around the famous Jedi Master from the franchise, following his story post the events of Revenge of the Sith Episode 3, which saw him fight and defeat his one-time friend and student Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan finds himself in hiding post these events within planet Tatooine, as the Empire has set about eliminating all Jedi warriors with the Order 66 initiative. Obi-Wan also keeps an eye on Anakin's son Luke Skywalker from a distance, hoping that he will grow up to be the pivotal figure in opposing the Empire one day. We also focus on a dangerous group known as the Inquisitors, who hunt down the Jedi, in particular Reva, who is the most recent recruit and harbours a vengeful motivation in wanting to kill Obi-Wan. Now Obi Wan Kenobi is debuting on Disney Plus and overall consists of 6 episodes. Now going into the series, there was a lot of anticipation from Star Wars fans in seeing Ewan McGregor once again as Obi-Wan, with the prospect of the much hoped rematch of the century as quoted by Kathleen Kennedy, which would see Obi-Wan and Anakin as Darth Vader battle once again. However, there was also some concern given the already debate and divisiveness within the Star Wars fandom following the Disney Star Wars trilogy and also the Book of Boba Fett series. So would Obi-Wan prove to be a standout series within the Disney Star Wars era? Now sadly I'm going to have to say no, and if I were to sum up this series in a couple of words, it would both be underwhelming and unnecessary. And this is something I've stated since day one when they announced this series, that Obi-Wan has already had the most compelling parts of his story already told, whether it be from the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, Star Wars The Clone Wars animated series, or Star Wars Rebels the animated series. Straight away I question what more could be told here. What more could be told that was worth investing in, since we don't refer to any events during this time period later on within the Star Wars mythology, and the show itself just couldn't justify its existence throughout its entire run. Now we did start off earlier on with seeing Obi-Wan very much broken and traumatised from the events of Revenge of the Sith 10 years on, and I think this was a decent start, and I felt this is where we could have seen far more extended flashbacks or references of both him and Anakin during their Clone Wars days, and we could have had far more scenes of Hayden Christensen in the role, and this would have justified bringing him back to the show as well. I even anticipated seeing a Clone Wars centric episode with both Obi-Wan, Anakin and even a young Ahsoka, especially given her recent appearance in both The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, as well as getting her own series in the future, which I believe will be screened sometime in 2023. And I think a complete Clone Wars episode would have added much more reflection and resonance, but sadly that wasn't to be. And I think overall they really wasted Hayden's returning to the role. Overall, we only had that one flashback scene, I believe it was in episode 4, where we saw Obi-Wan and Anakin practicing, and despite both actors still looking convincing enough during this time period between the two characters, I just don't think it was sufficient in having the impact that it should have done if we had more extended scenes between the two characters. The show also had to justify Obi-Wan leaving Tatooine and supervising Luke in order to have further adventures for ongoing episodes, and they did this by introducing a young Princess Leia. The following episode we saw her being raised by Bail Organa and Planet Alderaan. Of course, this is where she was left off at the end events of Revenge of the Sith. And overall, I just felt Leia wasn't really needed within this particular story, and overall in terms of the characterization, I think they made her a bit too precocious and overall a bit annoying. Now, this wasn't really the fault of the actress playing her, and this was really more a fault of the way that the character was written. Now, of course, we know Leia to be very spunky and sprightly and very confident in herself when we see her in the original trilogy films, but I think to install that kind of personality and even amplify it overall within a childlike version just didn't seem right in terms of the character itself, and I think actually kind of deflated the memory a bit of Princess Leia overall. So that wasn't a direction I would have taken within the character. Again, they did certain things without the series to try and make Leia more important, having her outrun certain assassins and then later on outrun Obi-Wan as he's trying to protect her. It just, again, played to that overall cliche of younger characters being too stubborn and not listening to their elders. Now, Leia is far more prominent in the first half of the series as Obi-Wan has to rescue her from being kidnapped, but she becomes far less active in the penultimate episodes, which I think overall is the correct decision, but overall I still feel her inclusion wasn't needed and was merely just fan service overall when we think about it. Now, we then have to talk about the series' most controversial character, and that is of course Reva. Now, we all know the events surrounding actress Mosen Ingram, who played the character, and the issues of her receiving racist comments and further abuse online, and Disney rushing to her support, causing lots of division within the fandom, claiming that wrongful accusations were being made towards them and that certain factions of the fan base were being gaslighted, and many fans pointing out the inconsistencies in certain actors being treated or supported far more than others had in previous shows and movies. But in terms of the show itself, the controversy surrounding this character really was more about the performance as Reva herself, which I'd say overall was probably a bit too forced, particularly in the opening episodes. They really wanted to present this character as having a true sense of vengeance and anger about her, trying to create that sense of a burning intensity that we see her when she appears alongside the Inquisitors, but I just don't think it was solid enough in terms of a portrayal. There were moments when she was okay, I suppose, more in the later episodes, but I just think it was too much of a varying degree in terms of the overall quality. Now, if Reva was merely a supporting character, perhaps it would have been such an issue, but the problem is within this series here, Reva was clearly the most integral character in terms of the entire story. Everything that we see from when she wants to initially hunt down Obi Wan to her origin overall of being a survivor of the Jedi Temple attacks that we saw from Revenge of the Sith, where we also learn that she intentionally got herself recruited within the Inquisitors in order to get revenge on Vader, from whom she drew the connection that was Anakin when he was assaulting all of the Jedi younglings. Now, a lot of her origin story just didn't hold scrutiny for me, or the fact that Vader had sense of her intentions. If he was so aware of what Reva was trying to do, why didn't he just kill her in the first place? What was the goal really of having her enlisted in the Inquisitors for so many years? It just didn't make sense if Vader had that knowledge of her and her overall motivations. We then also have to talk about the mere stupidity of Reva somehow being able to survive being struck by a lightsaber not only once but twice, when the younglings were attacked and she was struck down by Anakin when she was younger, and then later on in the penultimate episode where she was struck down by Vader. The fact that we don't even take the time to see how she recovers from her wounds is again a lack of storytelling. And overall, in terms of Reva, I just think there were too many problems in terms of how she was written, not more so by the actress herself, but again how she was overall portrayed within the overall story. And I think there's also some criticism in regarding of the action sequences, and in particularly the lightsaber action and choreography. Now, Deborah Chow directed all 6 episodes of the show, and I think, particularly when we talk about the lightsaber battles, I think she just uses too many angles, and if not quite shaky cam, certainly some sort of scattershot technique. Maybe she was trying to increase the frenetic energy in terms of the lightsaber battles, but it did come a bit disorientating at times. And all of the lightsaber battles just didn't quite have the same ebb and flow and stylish maneuvers that what we saw in particularly with the prequel trilogy. Now, despite all of the flaws that I've outlined here, there were some good qualities within the show. Ewan McGregor effortlessly fits back into his role as Obi-Wan, as if he's never left. He still looks the part, he still handles the accent very well, and performance-wise, I don't think anybody can complain about his work during this show. Darth Vader, still for me the franchise's most iconic character, is also handled well for the most part. The aura, the menace, the presence, it's all still there. There is still that tension and dread whenever he appears on screen. We had certain sequences when he walks into the village, killing people and children, again just ramping up all of the suspense around the character. Also, the fight sequence with Reva in the 5th episode was a very cool sequence when Vader was clearly showing his superiority, fighting Reva without the use of lightsabers, once again just establishing how powerful he truly is. The only issue that I had in terms of Vader was the certain moments where I felt he was a bit overpowered. We had certain scenes when he brings down an entire ship carrier, ripping it apart, and it's moments like this that contradict the original trilogy to an extent, for which there were similar sequences and Vader doesn't exhibit the same power level. But this is why I think Vader's portrayal was overall solid without the show. We had other supporting characters such as Talia, who helps out Obi-Wan in episodes 3 and 4, who is probably overall the best supporting character, and also I think Joel Edgerton as Owen Lars was good for the limited time that he had on screen. Kumail Nanjiani as a con artist posing as a Jedi was okay in small doses, but he becomes far less important as the show overall progresses. I also liked the fact that the music was far closer in spirit to John Williams' iconic themes. It just made it feel more like a Star Wars series overall. So we quickly then talk about the finale episode, which was very anticlimactic. The so-called rematch of the century between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader just lacks any of the build-up that we had within the Revenge of the Sith concerning their encounter. The fight itself, when it happens, just really comes out of nowhere. We did again get some overpowered moments with the smashing of the ground by Darth Vader and the lifting of the boulders by Obi-Wan, which kind of really took you out of the scene. Again, it calls back to why didn't they use these power levels later on within the original trilogy. We see later on that Vader crushes Obi-Wan under the rocks but doesn't go in to finish him. Then Obi-Wan somehow gets up and catches him up and then defeats him overall, but then doesn't kill him. So again, I think that undercuts again Obi-Wan's capabilities, that he once again lets Darth Vader go. You had the opportunity to finish him off and perhaps save the galaxy in the long run, but once again this proves to be an overall weakness, and of course it goes on to cost him later on within A New Hope. And I think again this whole issue of the rematch, we know that neither combatant will die within the final fight, so again a lot of the tension is taken away from the overall moment. We then go into what is probably the most contentious issue, and that is of course Reva again, having a young Luke at her mercy and striking distance with terms of her lightsaber, and then overall not deciding to kill him. This run of events playing out very much like the leaks that were confirmed a couple of weeks ago surrounding the show. And the reason that it's very contentious is because it makes Reva overall the most pivotal point of the entire universe, in terms of the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and even the expanded universe. If she had a change of mind, then Luke dies, and then that's it for the entire franchise. So in many ways, Obi-Wan kind of failed in terms of his quest to protect Luke, and I think overall it was a big mistake here. In really centering the show and the overall climax around Reva, it would have been far more suitable to have Obi-Wan come in at the fateful moment and then talk Reva out of it in the last minute. That would have still made Obi-Wan very integral in his protection of Luke. And then the final sequence here where we saw the reappearance of Qui-Gon as we all suspected. It was good to see Liam Neeson once again within the role, and he looked very convincing as we see Qui-Gon in his ghost form. This again leads to Obi-Wan beginning his training in how to make contact with people even though he has passed away. But I think overall it would have been nice to have Qui-Gon be far more prominent throughout the series, and it would have lent again much more gravitas and resonance to the overall show and Obi-Wan as a character. So overall it was a lackluster finale, and I'd actually say that the finale for Book of Boba Fett was probably superior. At the very least we had lots of action and spectacle and momentum with that finale, but we didn't really get that here in terms of Obi Wan Kenobi. So if I had to give an overall score for the series of Obi Wan Kenobi, I would sadly give it a 5.6 out of 10. At the end of the day, I think Ewan McGregor was great again within the role. I think Darth Vader was portrayed right for the most part. I liked the music and certain action scenes were okay, but I think the show was let down by bad writing and also characterization. The likes of Hayden Christensen returning as Darth Vader was really underutilized for the most part. I felt the inclusion of Leia was really unnecessary, and there were just too many times throughout this series where I just couldn't see the reason for existing other than to provide Disney Plus with more content. So unfortunately, like we've seen most recently with the likes of Rogue One, Solo, the Book of Boba Fett, Obi Wan Kenobi is sadly yet again another unnecessary Star Wars story. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and review of Obi-Wan, the overall season and the finale itself. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you enjoy the series? Did you think it was much more of an essential part of the new Disney Star Wars era and indeed the Star Wars as a franchise as a whole? Or do you agree with me that you felt like this was really unnecessary and didn't really do anything to add any further significance or movement in terms of the franchise when we look further back or indeed go forward? And do you think overall that Star Wars as a franchise in the Disney Plus era is really stuck too much in the past when we look at the upcoming shows and the likes of Ahsoka, The Acolyte and Andor? And do you think we should be pushing the series far more forward in taking risks with new continuities and new characters? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.